In the meantime, in between time, it's For Real Friday. And I've been taking my time pedaling here. Hey, I got somebody on my live. Good morning For Real Friday. I'm up here. I figured let me jump on and go live before my real day starts. I'm pedaling along here because this is May Wellness Month, and I belong to an organization called National Association of Black Female Executives in Music and Entertainment. And this is our 25th year anniversary. So as I figured, since I'm going live, let me work out and do some fitness for myself. Because when you get a little older like myself and you start going through the change, you have that menopausal weight. So I'm Tam Behind the Mic, and I just want to say I'm doing pretty good. It's Mother's Day coming up on Sunday. And I don't know if you all know, if you've read some of my description, I lost my daughter, one of my daughters, almost 8 years ago. She was 30 years of age. And she died from a massive heart attack at 30 on Thanksgiving and my birthday, in front of my two special need grandchildren that I'm currently raising. So it's kind of hard for me and it's kind of hard for them. Thank you. And it's been very challenging for my entire family. My grandchildren are now, one is 15 and the other one is 11. He'll be 12 in a couple of weeks on the 25th. So my mother is deceased as well. But unfortunately, we had a very estranged relationship. And the reason why I wanted to jump on here, because I'm a native New York, I'm from New York City, I still reside here, is because of our politicians. And I just saw that Eric Adams got a bill passed through the state on mental illness, how they'll have the capability to involuntary force people into treatment. Well, even though my daughter passed away from a massive heart attack and she wasn't taking care of herself, she also had mental illness. And I believe it was triggered from my lifestyle as a hip hop pioneer. I started out in 1976. You won't hear too much about my history because I don't give in to the antics and the narratives. And I'm also an essay survivor. And I'm really passionate about those causes. But with my daughter, she was beautiful, exceptionally smart. And after I finished up college, I got back into the industry and I started out in the parks and was trying to cross over again because there's so much shady, shysty stuff going on in the industry. I don't want to go on a tangent and be all over the place. But however, I had been advocating for my daughter for many years because my mom suffered from what they call bipolar. But back in the days when I was a kid, it was called manic depressant. And my mother had been treated at Creemore. And when my parents broke up, I was left alone with this lady that was really not capable of taking care of herself, let alone me. And a lot of the particulars, she had a lot of baggage. But I'm not going to go into all of that story because I figured I'll probably put that into segments. And I've been working on a memoir as well. But it's difficult because I had gone for when my daughter became of age and she left home, and I was just so frustrated. It's just a lot. When you're dealing with them, borderline personality disorder is more complex than schizophrenia or bipolar. And because my daughter manipulated on a whole different level, right? She was exceptionally smart and beautiful. And I believe if she could have had the proper diagnosis and the consistency with therapy, she would still be here. And it was a lot for her to be raising her two special needs grandkids, my grandchildren, by herself. And unfortunately, their father suffered from the same thing. You know, he was schizophrenic. So it's just like crazy dynamics. But ironically, when the year that my daughter passed away in 2017, I'm a former city worker. And I was working while injured because as a black woman, single woman, even though we could be injured, but we got to look up and get up. And then I was so worried about my daughter with all of these, with two city agencies, contracted agencies, everybody promising me that they was going to do their job. They'll make sure she's okay. When she was having symptoms of heart trouble, children's services had put somebody, like a homemaker, to help her out with the kids. And she was telling my daughter was indigestion. And I was thinking, because of, the nature, like, why are they not making sure that she's going to the doctor? You know what I mean? Because you have to take care of yourself. When I had my granddaughter, for the first 3 years of her life, because she was born with medical conditions, my daughter had to get situated. It was just like a up and a down roller coaster. It's like a parent's nightmare because they love their child and they're trying to get as much help as possible. Okay. And then you're thinking about when I was in the industry and I linked up with terrible predators that I tried to file. Well, I did file an action against them. My case was dismissed because it's the hardest thing if you're filing pro se and you're trying to run and get a lawyer. And I have a legal background, but it threw up all that PTSD. And then I'm taking care of these grandkids that have doctor's appointments, and I have my own medical appointments. So I had been trying to get my daughter into help, and nobody was really helping her. They act like they was helping, monitoring the house, and they wasn't, because when I was working at my job in the city of New York, for the city of New York, I had taken the mental health first aid training. And a lot of time with these people, they could present very well. Everybody's not on the streets. You understand? They could be in their household. Like my mom. My mom worked, but she would spend all her damn money. She paid the rent, but we wouldn't have food. She would just go off on different times and scales. Now, with my daughter, she could present very well, but she wasn't taking care of her medical. And I put adult protective services because sometimes she feel like a nut, sometimes she don't. It's just like an almond joy. Sometimes I feel like a nut, sometimes I don't. Because with all of this, I have anxiety and I get depressed because I lost my child, and I feel like the city of New York and the state of New York should have done more, because I had to go file before she even started having kids for a mental health hygiene warrant, because she would be out there in the street and all sorts of things was happening, you know? Um, so with that being said, my daughter, they probably could have fixed her heart, and they didn't. They wasn't monitoring. And my family lives with this trauma, and I lived with it as well, because I practically lost everything. If I had a nervous breakdown, I don't know, because I never had a chance to sit in it. My daughter was making a Thanksgiving meal, and she was also making birthday dinner, and I was pushing a cart that I shouldn't have for a City Feb's training for people that was homeless. See, I gave a lot of dedicated service. Hi, a lot of dedicated service, right? Because I know what it's like to be homeless. I had to leave home at 13. And I started with now what they call hip hop. I started rapping when I was 10 and a half. And, they keep me out the history because everybody's story differs. I started in 1976 and I have evidence, you know, but in music to me and writing rhymes and even freestyling, it was an outlet because it was positive vibration. Nothing like it is now. And when we were in the parks and block parties and avenues and house party, it was a little more safer, you know? But I went on a tangent. I wanted to say that, my daughter was preparing, her Thanksgiving meal, and I kept telling her, that's not indigestion. It sounds like it's your heart, and I'll take you. But she would always shift. And with this lady telling her it's indigestion, but I kept saying, Alexia, she's not a doctor. And I don't understand why she was not consulting with her supervisor. But, needless to say, my daughter cooked the whole entire Thanksgiving meal. She thought her father was coming by. That's another damn story for another time. And he was a no-show, as usual. And my youngest daughter was there. And at some point, my daughter went into cardiac arrest. And come to find out, she had had a heart attack previously that she didn't know about. She had a blood clot that lodged and traveled and busted her heart open. And my grandson, who is on the autism spectrum, witnessed this traumatic event, as well as my youngest daughter. She was making, I think she was preparing plates or something. But the nut in the nutshell is, had my daughter she was supposed to be going to therapy. She didn't want to do medication because her moods would shift. And she used the marijuana and sometimes a synthetic K2, but that's not what ultimately killed her. She had uncontrollable high blood pressure. There was a history of heart disease. And the drinking, the smoking, the lifestyle, the stressed out because she would be into mischief is what caused her to transition so fast on Thanksgiving and my birthday. So now with it being Mother's Day, I had to fight tooth and nail with the city. I cussed everybody out. They didn't give me no money for my grandkids, but I figured what I had to endure, leaving home, being in the shelter system, being in the group home setting, still rapping, MCing, and then linking up with a so-called friend, staying at her house that was totally dysfunction. I jumped out of the frying pan into the fire. But at the end of the day is that I'm not mom, and the end of the day, when my daughter was on the other side, the much calmer side, the creative side, like exceptionally smart. You can refer to some of my other videos. When she was on that side, she would give me the most beautiful cards and gifts and things like that. And my thing with Eric Adams is, I remember Eric, because Eric used to hang out with one of my cousins in South Jamaica, Queens. And he should have remembered me emceeing in 150 Park and 40 Park and 48 Park and various different venues, Lincoln Park, Ajax. It was so many different areas in Queens. But at this day and age, people forget where they come from, and they also go with a narrative, a narrative that generates money, the capitalism. And there's just a lot going on in this phase of things. But now all of a sudden the state wants to make it involuntarily, that they ensure that people are getting treated and they're able to sustain their own apartments and care for themselves. Well, here's my take. It's almost 8 years too late for my daughter. When my daughter passed away, she had $14,000 in arrears in her NYC apartment. She had shattered her ankle one time coming, the elevator was broken on the 12th floor. My granddaughter has a form of CP, and she used to wear braces on her legs. She should have never been on a 12th floor in a NYC apartment. So many big hiccups. I put adult protective services in my household, in her household, to help her with doctor's appointments and things, because I knew something was wrong. Nobody did their job. So, I'm going to close up with this, is that this new law and this funding, just like the funding for the New York City Thrives, that the former mayor de Blaisio's wife funneled all of that money. Thank you. Yeah, chicken noodle soup. Shit, I know it is. It is, because I didn't unwrap it. I gotta get accustomed to publicly speaking again, because, like I said, with all of the trauma that I experienced, you see, chicken noodle soup, romaine, yeah. I have to get used to it. It's like I'm learning all over again, because I'm a new person. When you have that heartbeat and that grief, and you've had so many different things that you've had to fight against and survive. And it's been like that since I was born. I'm 60. I'll complete my 60th year in November. It's very, very challenging. So I said, you know what? I can't work like I used to. I'd have to create hobbies. Of course, like I said, I have my grandchildren, because I would not dare allow them to go to a system that drops the ball. I lost my city job because they didn't particularly like me, because I was very vocal. And I've always had to be vocal. When you grow up in a tough childhood and you're one of the very few females emceeing, and you just had to be tough because you've had to protect yourself from the babysitters' sons, protect yourself from when my mother left my father, uh, the rooming house kids. You have to. And then you're doing something that nobody has really got a jolt of what's going on, because it's new. So you're standing out. So I've learned at one point that I had to speak up. I had to be vocal. And I don't go along with the get along crowd. I really don't. I don't, because I know what it's like to be in the cliques. And I know that some people vibrate negatively. And because, like, even let's go talk about Diddy for a minute. Had that been nipped in the bud early on, we wouldn't be here now. They created a culture that it was okay. Like, every female or boy that came along was not a groupie. They created something from something good that started out within the 5 boroughs. I always get flopped for this too, because everybody said everything began and ended in the Bronx, and it didn't. You know, rapping was always here. Breakdancing was always here. They might have just correlated the four and put it together, but all of those things that were going on in the Bronx River, and they're sweeping it under the rug. It makes no sense. There's probably so many people that have lost their mind because they have been preyed upon. You know, it's so many different facets why people become mentally ill, you know? And when I was doing things differently, I've had to survive, you know? So I spoke out and I requested for so many investigations into my daughter's case. Eric Adams was the borough president. I emailed him directly, to no avail. You know, he said, call the office. He didn't realize that I was his former friend, Jamaica's cousin. But why do I have to name drop to get services? You understand? They've built a whole like web of, it's almost like a whole posse or cruise. There's another word that I'm looking for that I can't think of. And sometimes that happens with me because I have, you know, grief fog, but a whole enterprise. That's what I want to say. An enterprise, you know, to get people to be held accountable. And the thing about it, the accountability is that when things go wrong, then you have the opportunity to have some type of corrective action. So, you know, in trying to wind down this particular live and about the mental health, about Mother's Day, that's very difficult. I have two other daughters, right? But it's not the same because for the simple fact, that daughter was my first one. You know, sometimes the babysitter is trying to do studio work. And my thing is that I'm always, I had to learn through therapy. I had to learn through therapy to love myself in spite of, because I always think in hindsight, if I would have known better, I probably would have done better. Like going back to the same producers that was shiesty. And that was part of the ring. And then we have a mayor that calls all these people legends. And that, yeah, things happen, but more good. What good has come out of this? You know, so hypocritical. What good has come out of it? I don't understand. All the good that's come out of what, hip hop? Look what Diddy's done, allegedly. That's a big allegedly. But it's been going on from the fruition. Look at me being a survivor. No, I didn't get no millions of dollars. They don't even want to acknowledge me in the history. Oh, they say Google. I don't have time for Google. I'm raising kids and I'm trying to keep my psyche together. So, you know, I wanted to create this platform so that folks can understand and that I could develop my oratorial abilities again. See, I have my centering stone. I do little crystals and stuff, and I try to protect my energy because I've learned a lot, because I got to keep myself really grounded. But, you know, it's difficult for families, for little children that have lost a parent, and for our public officials to say that they're addressing these social problems and these social wrongs when it's not. All that money went to Chirlane McCray in 2017. I attended one of the unities when the museum was called the Universal Hip Hop Cares, and I shared my story. The last one, she wasn't even there. Chirlane McCray left. She wasn't interested on what real people are going through and the bureaucracy of obtaining the mental health hygiene warrants and all of that stuff in the Kendrill's law. Do I have reefer? No, I don't smoke reefer. Mm-mm. I haven't smoked any reefer or any mood mind chemicals in 30 years and counting. Nope. So that wouldn't be for me. But what I do have is some sage. I have some sage. Lord, yes. I got some sage. God created this, see? I have some Palo Santo too, some holy wood. I'm not a witch. Even if I am a witch, you can call me Glenda the Good Witch. Because I come in peace. I ain't never leaving in pieces. But anyway, like I was saying, you know, I started out with Eric Adams. And let me tell you, I'm not a fan. I didn't vote for him in mayor because I would have been disappointed. You know, because I already knew what time it was. Because when I worked like in the city and I saw this guy, how he moved up to become commissioner, and he had did all of these shady, shiesty stuff. And they do this for years. And they look out for their own kind that's in their clique. I ain't got time for no damn cliques. Really don't. You know? Because it's at the end of the day, it's every man, woman, child for themselves. But as I was saying, I attended that Universal Hip Hop Museum Cares. They really don't care. That's just a front. By my opinion, mega. Well, you know what? I changed my Democratic Party. I won't tell you what party I'm with. But I ain't mad. I didn't vote for Trump. I didn't vote for Kamala either. You understand? And the reason why I didn't vote for Trump, and I'm from Queens, not too far from where he was raised over there in Jamaica States, because I grew up in the St. Albans Hollis area until I was 18. I was back and forth. But I'll tell you that in another, video, some of my background, I'll be unveiling some stuff. But far as the illegals, because they call them migrants, but they illegally, jumped over that border. And I don't have nothing against, immigration, but I think that everything needs to be done properly in an orderly manner. And it has really taken a lot away from our resources here in the United States, especially in New York, like with the mental health. Like Kathy Hochul didn't pass the Grievance Family Act for grandparents like myself that are raising their grandchildren to special needs. I don't qualify for SNAP, but they gave all of these illegals, and this is Eric Adams. That's why I say it's so damn hypocritical. He rolled out the carpet. Let me see. You should vote for Trump in 2028. He's not going to run again in 2028. Trump. And I like some of Trump's policies. Oops. Don't let the black folks hear that. I really do. Like, yeah. But here, did you hear that one of the federal judges that Biden appointed is making Trump bring back 12,000 of those migrants? And what's so crazy, we have a lot of black folks that keep talking about reparations. Hi, how you doing, Monk? They keep talking about reparations, but by the end of all of this, I bet you the migrants are going to be suing the United States for the harm and the conditions that they were made to live in by leaving the United States, and they didn't come over here the right way. Go figure. There's a lot of things that's going on with the courts. And I'm like, my parents, I come from a lineage line of slaves before them, but they were sharecroppers in North Carolina. My mom came from North Carolina. My father came from Georgia. And they migrated up here, up north, for a better living. And my family is traced back to slaves. Not everybody came over, but you know, they all the continents at one time they were all together. So you can't say who was what. So it's a lot of nonsense that's going along. But what I wanted to say is that, yeah, it was a black federal judge that has ordered the Trump administration. And I'm like, what the hell? Now, since I don't receive SNAP and I have a messed up back, I have some medical issues. I got some psychological ones too, anxiety and depression and stuff like that. And sometimes to offset some of the costs, because I'm doing different projects here. I love music and I'm never going to give it away. And I believe that my story is probably a series, probably a movie. But before my daughter passed almost 8 years ago, she had went to college for engineering because she loved music as well. She was exceptionally smart. And I had started, since I had bought my home like 24 years ago, to create a studio, right? And as time went on, my income changed, and I could no longer like have food deliveries because they was giving us crap anyway under the Blaisio. The pandemic hit. I've had COVID 3 times. Should have never taken this shot. They need to be giving us reparations for that because of that Fauci bull crap. You know what I mean? And I've had to detox some of that's out my system because we don't know what the heck was going on. But anyhow, there's times that I sit on that damn pantry line. And here you've had all of these people jump the border and they got 8 and 9 kids, and you're trying to make ends meet, and you've worked most of your life since you was 14, and now you at a place, and the accommodation for United States citizens is very minimal. But I'm the type of person is that I can acclimate to any situation that I'm in because I know what it's like to live on high provision and low provision, because that's what us street kids do. That we've come from broken homes and we have to survive. You just learn how to acclimate. So I've sat on those pantry lines to offset some of the costs of maintaining my home and my grandkids. And thank God my daughter worked enough quarters so they received survivor benefits and a little bit of SSI, so I make it work, But so much has been taken from us that could have been given to the citizens and the people here in New York. What panty lines? Stop being fresh. I'm going to block you. Let me see. Remove them. Yeah. Okay. I misheard. Yeah, because somebody had said something out the way. You know how them trolls come in. But anyway, yeah, they took a lot. We were just coming out of a pandemic. And our mayor, Grandstand, he liked to be egocentric and said that what Abbott and them was doing was inhumane, and they sent all them buses here. At first he was welcoming them in, and then when it got too overwhelming, then no, they had to go, but then they was getting all this money on a card. And I'm looking like in here, I was out of commission because my injuries from my back was injured by me pushing a 50-pound cart for a whole week for FEPS training. And my daughter is over there in Coney Island sick, and she ultimately dies. And I couldn't even, in her apartment, and I couldn't even be there to even call an ambulance. And I lost my damn job. And the reason why is because I wasn't in that clique. And because when I see something wrong, I'm going to speak on it. And I used to be a shop steward too. So when you come up and you've had to advocate for yourself, it designs an individual to want to speak up and be a voice for the voiceless. That's what I'm trying to say. So, yeah, and then when that happens, and then you fighting for your workers' comp, which I got 50% after 6 years, but you done gave all these people that illegally jumped the border, and they all must have given the magic words that they're fearful at home because they heard the United States was giving all these ritzy hotels. They giving them cards. They getting cars. Can't even buy a car for myself for these kids and to get around with these children. I mean, they just gave them carte blanche. And then they came in an entitlement. And let me tell you something. He might win, but I don't know if Trump would be mentally fit, because everything is not all great with Trump, but it wouldn't be with any president. It don't matter whether or not they're Democratic or Republican. But the bottom line is that a lot of the laws, the legislations need to be changed. You have these judges that have this kind of mindset. Because I'm like, this is ridiculous. You're giving these people rights. And what about the citizens? What about the people's family and generations of lineage line that helped create and shape America? And we can't get no damn reparations. Like I said, the ones that took the shot and have suffered side effects should be entitled to reparations. Good morning. Hi, Christina. Well, I'm hanging in there. How you doing? I was just talking about Eric Adams and about the mental health bill that they got passed and the funding. That's true. He said those judges ought to be stripped of power in jail. No one is above the law. Absolutely. Absolutely. Good morning. Yes, girl, I'm black and I'm proud, child. Yep. Say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud. Yeah. You're not doing good? Well, anyway, let me get back on topic. And when I say I don't care, I used to have home health aides that came in and assisted me with the children because I've had surgery and I'm raising my grandkids. Thank you so much. And I like to radiate inside out. No, you can't talk to me because I ain't got the cure. I'm trying to cure myself. Well, you know what? At some point you will be able to. When I do the StreamYard, when I get everything situated up here in my space, I'm waiting for my cousins to hook up my computers because my laptop is very slow and I can't work. I'm on a fixed income. And hopefully, as time goes along, maybe you all can donate because I'm in therapy with all this stuff that has happened to me. And with these judges kicking out my case, because I filed under the Adult Sexual Survivors Act too. Yeah, they can be super disrespectful. Really. Yeah. And that's people. It don't matter. Did you check out Kwame Brown earlier? He was talking about the Diddy thing, but I don't want to go on a tangent. I want to finish up where I was at. But about, yeah, these illegals, they are very disrespectful, super. Um, when it comes to the holidays, because sometimes when they say it's free, it's for me. Because like I said, I'm offsetting courses because I'm trying to set up things and take care of my own home, and I'm taking care of my grandchildren who have been traumatized because they watched my daughter die right in front of them with all of these agencies. So when these politicians, the Democrats, I call them Democrats, and I changed my party entirely. And that reminds me, I have to send Hakeem Jeffries a nice email. I'm trying to formulate it really good because I have some things. Because now they're trying to get back a lot of the people that used to be Democrats or in their districts to come on that. And no, we want tangibles. I hear a lot of people talk about tangibles. I want tangibles. I don't care. I'm not going to shut up. I'm not going to be quiet because enough is enough. I got grandchildren that need to be able to have some equitable access to decent housing, employment, education, special services, because both of my grandchildren have IEPs. And I've had to implement everything, grief and trauma therapy. And meanwhile, children's services was in my daughter's house. They got mad because, yeah, I cussed the manager out. I did. I'm hysterical. I lose my child Thanksgiving, my birthday. You're saying, oh, Miss Tam, we have everything covered, and they didn't. So, people that say, oh, let's stay together, black. It don't matter. It doesn't matter. I've had good people that have been white, that have been very supportive and have looked out and provided services for myself and my grandchildren and have been a saving grace. For me, I don't look at people in color because people are people. You cut your hand, you bleed like I bleed. You know what I mean? You might have a different blood type. Hi, ma'am. I hope you well. I just wanted to say Jesus love you. You give him all your struggles and he will give you rest. Amen. Ashe, ashe, ashe. I do. And let me tell you something. I'm living proof how he shows up. Because every obstacle they have thrown at me and my family, we have been able to rise above it. I woke up this morning. I have a roof over my head. I have my grandchildren. I have food. And I have good energy to give out to the universe. And I also have experiences that I can share. But I want to use my platform to share, and people need to wake up because we really sleeping. And I know that our adults, our children, everybody needs to be protected. And if anyone wants to operate and get involved in the music industry, as well as acting, so forth and so on, they should not be prerequisite to give into any kind of satanic rituals. And power is the new drug. Yes, they do. And start respecting people like Thomas Sowell, Clarence Thomas. Yeah, definitely we need better leaders. And we need these leaders to be accountable. And but it is what it is it's a whole clique. It's a whole posse. Because even with the guys that preyed upon me and manipulated other teens, and it's just so crazy. They still uphold them. They honor them. The politicians, Eric, say that they legends and all of this nonsense. And meanwhile, some of those people that might be on the streets and strung out on drugs have been victims of this craziness. And it's not even in only entertainment. I lived in a household that was embedded with incest, unbeknownst to me. And that was like really crazy. Really. And, you have so many people turning a blind eye, like this is the new normal, And unfortunately, the Black community and these Black leaders are selling us back into slavery because it's an indirect slavery. It really is. What else you're saying? Yeah, let me tell you, from what I've been through, I'm just starting to get more hours of sleep. I have not been able to sleep properly, even when it came to my particular case. I got sick a couple of times. I got COVID for the third time. One of my daughters had traveled to Ibiza, Spain. She came back with E. coli. There was history with her dad, who was a pretty too. Just a lot. And I had kept so many things in a defense mechanism and nobody coming to help and support. And then I had an epiphany. No one has ever really came and supported far as the political leadership. There have been other angels that God has sent my way, or higher power, or whoever you choose to call it. Everybody may have something different, and because I may identify as my source is different from yours, don't make it wrong or right. Okay? Because that's the power that works for me. You know? Um, it's the challenge of it all. What you're saying. Yeah, but anyhow, I'm hoping and praying that, we get better leadership. Oh, and I had also listed, because I had to list my little topics. Let's talk about Letitia James. I had been said, I said, here Black people get this power. We abuse the power. We sell one another's out if we not with the program. This is all the same play that led us into slavery the first time. And people do not look at history and see the patterns. And I always felt like, when they was going after Trump, not saying that everything was right about him, because ain't nobody perfect, right? But with that stupidness about his mortgage inflating his income, I was like, they pointing fingers, and I know because I've worked in government and see how they play. But there's three fingers pointing back at them, right? And here she's spending all this money to go after one individual. But I requested, when she was public advocate, to investigate my daughter's death and the people involved with it, the agencies, ACS, Adult Protective Services, Preventive Health, Bridges to Health, and the homemaker that they put in my daughter's apartment, right? And it got swept under the rug. It wasn't until she was running for Attorney General that all of a sudden, I kid you not, because I scanned all the documents. I kept all the documents. It wasn't until she was trying to run for Attorney General that they gave me a call, right? Then come to find out, said somebody will be getting back to me. But then come to find out that when she left the public advocacy, it was alleged that she left and her staff left 1,000 backlog of cases. And my daughter's case was in there. I mean, I was ringing alarm. My back was all messed up, right? And all I'm thinking about is that I lost my child. My grandkids lost their mother, and she died in front of them. It shouldn't have happened. She had mental health issues. Nobody was monitoring because she wasn't going to the therapist. They tried calling ACS. They never not got the phone call. And the bottom line is 8 years later, they got away with it. And even when I went to go file the notice of claim, twice they tried to cover it up. They did cover it up. And it has been a freaking circus. So do I feel bad for Letitia James? Nope, I don't. Because she spent all of that money and Trump still became president. And a lot of them are dirty. A lot of them, it don't matter what color they are. We don't have any true leaders. Even Al Sharpton, is he really a true leader? He could preach. Because he damn sure gave a great eulogy for my friend James Davis. You know? So it's just ridiculous. Now the FBI is probing her. And now all of this is a political witch hunt. And all of this stuff. No, they point fingers and 3 fingers be pointing back at them all the time. And another thing, they have all of this cronyism, nepotism, whereas if my daughter wants to go get a job, she can't. She's going to be passed over because they're going to get their friend's friend or their relative to be in that slot. How is it fair game? One of my daughters, in fact, my youngest daughter, used to work with and for the Attorney General's office, Letitia James. And because her supervisor, I don't always be nice. I don't. The way my daughter described her, she probably was a big, like, Ursula, right? A black woman. Black woman. My daughter has always been dedicated. My youngest one has a child, got into a social situation of domestic violence. My daughter would travel from different boroughs to drop my granddaughter off so she could go to work. And this lady found the need to pick on my daughter. And my daughter is not a fighter like me. My daughter let me hear the conversation one time that she was talking to when they were doing remote work. My daughter was going into the office. Sometimes she couldn't come out here to Brooklyn because they lived all the way in Queens, Long Island City, trying to get an apartment, trying to be safe, from, the baby daddy. And this lady just picked on my daughter and picked on her. Then my daughter must have spoke back in defense, like, I'm doing such and such. And the lady didn't like it. And when you speak up for yourself, they're going to automatically retaliate. And that's what they did. And I'm talking about the Letitia James office, the Attorney General. Letitia James, I have a picture with her holding my granddaughter, those photo ops. My daughter ultimately wound up resigning, and whereas the shop steward wanted to fight for my daughter's position because she wanted to bring her up on charges of stealing time after my daughter had been employed at the Attorney General's office for 2.5 years. Yeah. So those rules and those policies, it's only the politicians and people in government in those cliques that can break them. And if we are not breaking them, they make up stuff. And ultimately, like I said, my daughter resigned and she moved on because this particular generation is not going to be having that. But I think in terms of what's going to happen with my grandchildren, and they have special needs. You know, they can't get a job, they can't secure a job because we're not in cahoots with all of this rhetoric and all of this corruption that's going on. And if they tell you to see something and say something, that don't mean crap. That's just lip service. These policies are only meant for a chosen few. The laws, again, is only meant for a chosen few. So that's my take on the Eric Adams thing with the mental health. I think it's another gimmick. I don't believe the hype. I believe that a lot of the money is going to go missing because when de Blaisio's wife had the so-called New York City Thrives, we lost a lot of lives during that period. And it must have been at least 6 weeks since I had initially attended that Universal Hip Hop Cares Museum event. And my daughter was gone. She had transitioned 6 weeks later. And then with all of this stuff that they're covering up and how they're tainting history. Because, again, they want everybody to believe, say, for instance, that everything started in Bronx River. Well, it was tainted energy from the beginning. You know, like I said, nobody has a problem with people's sexuality, right? But leave our kids alone. Leave our young adults alone. Do not manipulate and don't create such an energy that you have to do X, Y, Z or you can't become a big star. See, it's power and greed. And those are green-eyed monsters. They are part of the 7 deadly sins. You know, so people need to wake up. Again, Letitia James, Black leader. I feel the way I feel because of firsthand experience. She went after Trump. You know, karma is something else. You coming after him and your hands ain't clean either. And then y'all let all these people come over across that border. I've had approximately 30 home health aides come into my house to try to help me with the kids. And the language barrier, they got game, the stealing, the damaging to my property. And you know what? They have not been held culpable for it. And now here we got a federal judge that has put an order in for 12,000 of those illegals, because they ain't migrants, because they came over here the wrong way. When you got people that came across this border the right way, and they're still waiting for their citizenship. Make it make sense. It don't. So at that point, I wish that everybody have a great and blissful and peaceful day. Keep journeying to the light. Have a good one.